There are thousands of stories about the Bermuda Triangle told all over the world, but there's one number almost nobody talks about: 60,000. That's roughly how many people live inside this triangle today. They sleep here, they cook here, they go to work here, they grow old here. The same water that looks so terrifying in those videos is the water right outside their homes. And perhaps the strangest part is this: many of the people living here today may have ancestors who were passengers aboard ships that disappeared or were wrecked in these waters. Ships that crashed against the reefs surrounding the island. And instead of leaving, they decided to stay. The world knows the Bermuda Triangle as a graveyard. But right in the middle of that so-called graveyard, there is an entire country. And that raises a much bigger question. How did people survive in a place the world considers cursed? And after surviving, why did they choose to stay? To understand that, you first have to understand just how isolated this place really is. Bermuda isn't an island sitting next to some mainland country. It stands almost completely alone in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The nearest land to the west is the coast of the United States, about 1,050 kilometers away. And if you travel east by boat, you have to cross roughly 4,800 kilometers of open ocean before reaching the first landmass, Africa. Between them, there is almost nothing, just water, wind, and waves stretching all the way to the horizon. In the middle of all this emptiness, Bermuda covers only a little more than 50 square kilometers. That's roughly what you would get if you divided the area of a city into several pieces and kept just one of them. But what lies beneath this tiny island is even more fascinating. Bermuda isn't simply an island that rose from the ocean. It is the peak of a massive underwater volcano, whose base lies about 4,300 meters beneath the Atlantic Ocean. After the volcano became inactive, layer after layer of coral, shells, and marine sediment slowly accumulated around its summit. Over millions of years, they formed a layer of limestone nearly 60 meters thick. In other words, the ground where people in Bermuda build their homes today is essentially made from the remains of billions of marine organisms. But surrounding this ancient mountain is something that isn't a mystery at all. And yet, for hundreds of years, it has been breaking ships apart. Bermuda is surrounded by an unusual wall of coral reefs. Locals have long referred to these dangerous formations as shipwrecking reefs because some of them rise almost to the surface of the water, and they can destroy a ship in an instant. Ordinary coral reefs usually remain well below the surface, but here, the reef rises almost to sea level. Algae and marine growth build up around the rock, keeping parts of the reef dangerously close to the surface. And these formations can be incredibly hard. When an old wooden ship struck one of them, it often had little chance of staying intact. Today, more than 300 shipwrecks are believed to rest on the seabed around Bermuda. But here comes the twist in the story. Those same deadly reefs may have given Bermuda its first permanent people. The year was 1609. A terrifying storm pushed an English ship called the Sea Venture toward Bermuda. The ship crashed against the reefs, but the people on board survived, and that single event changed the future of the entire island. Stand on the hills of Bermuda today, and the first thing you'll notice isn't some towering skyscraper. It's thousands of bright white rooftops sparkling under the sun. From a distance, they look like they were designed purely for beauty. But those roofs are actually the lifeline of the island. Every roof is built in a series of steps, and carved into those steps are channels designed to collect rainwater. When it rains, the water flows down the roof, through those channels, and eventually into a huge tank hidden beneath the house. In Bermuda, building regulations require homes to have water storage systems designed according to the size of their roofs. Because on this island, every drop of rainwater is a resource. And the white color isn't simply for appearance either. The limestone coating reflects sunlight. It helps keep the collected water cleaner. It helps keep the house cooler. And the weight of the roof also helps it withstand powerful hurricanes. One roof, 4 different jobs. And this wasn't some modern technology developed inside a laboratory. It was the result of generations of people quietly observing the island around them. They realized something very early. They couldn't change the island, but they could learn how to live with it. people living in coastal communities understand this problem immediately. You can be surrounded by water, and yet the water beneath your feet can still be too salty to drink. The difference is, Bermuda turned that problem into law. But water is only one part of the survival equation. The rules for living on a tiny island don't end there. Since 1951, Bermuda has had strict restrictions on private cars. For decades, the island has limited private vehicle ownership and has not allowed tourists to simply rent ordinary cars the way they can in many other destinations. Think about that. At a time when many of the world's major cities were becoming increasingly dependent on cars, Bermuda chose a completely different path. As a result, on Bermuda's narrow roads, one of the most familiar sounds isn't the roar of engines. It's the soft sound of scooters moving through the trees and the distant horn of a ferry. And because there is almost no way to expand the island's land area, there are no massive factories and very little room for large-scale agriculture. Almost everything you see on store shelves has to arrive by sea. Rice, medicine, nails, school supplies, almost everything. People living on islands know this reality all too well. When bad weather stops a boat or ferry for a couple of days, the entire market can change. In Bermuda, people have to think about that reality all year round. And yet, they stayed. At the end of the day, they return to the same ocean. Some go fishing, some take their boats out. Others simply sit quietly, looking toward the horizon. To them, the ocean isn't a wall. It's the address of some of their oldest memories. And yet, this very ocean has witnessed events that still haven't been completely explained. One of the earliest famous witnesses was Christopher Columbus himself. According to historical accounts, the compass aboard his ship behaved strangely in this region. The needle did not always point where sailors expected it to. Even today, unusual compass readings can occur in parts of the Atlantic. Some scientists have suggested that variations in Earth's magnetic field and local geological conditions may contribute to navigational difficulties. Now imagine the world hundreds of years ago. There was no GPS, no satellite navigation, no digital map. For a sailor, a compass could be one of the only reliable tools for finding direction. And if that one needle started giving confusing readings, knowing where land was could become incredibly difficult. But not every shipwreck story ended in tragedy. Today, many people living in Bermuda can trace their ancestry back through centuries of settlers who arrived on the island. Some came because of shipwrecks. Some came because they chose to remain. The ocean may have brought them there by accident, but they turned that accident into a home. 400 years later, that decision still stands. White rooftops, green hills, and a small society built in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So perhaps the greatest mystery of the Bermuda Triangle isn't the ships that disappeared. The real mystery is this. How did people look at the very waters the world calls cursed and decide that this tiny piece of rock was worth calling home? Maybe the value of a place isn't measured by its size or by how much wealth it contains. Maybe it's measured by how tightly people choose to hold on to it.